Good evening, dear viewers. My name is Igor Zraevs. I am a retired Army colonel, and I've been doing the reports on the Ukraine war since its early beginning, doing it in my native language. However, I did have questions from some of you who wanted to see the report in English. So here it is. This one will be in English, and if you would be interested in continuing seeing such report in English, you just show me with your likes and subscriptions, and if there will be enough interest from the viewers in English language, I will continue doing the reports also in English. Today, as usually I'm doing in my Monday reports, I explain the changes which have happened during the weekend, and also do a short summary of the previous week events. And if we talk about the this weekend focus, we are focusing in two places, Klishchiivka and Karmazinivka. One is very favorable for the Ukrainians. Unfortunately, the other one is favorable for the Russians. But let's start with the report and start with the weather forecast. That is how the weather was seen previous week, with the rains in the beginning of the week. Now we will have much heavier rains that will continue throughout the whole week. I need to admit that this is not a very big change. Usually we have the bigger change in the weather forecast. It's switching from completely dry to completely raining, but now this is looks very similar. And if you look in the two weeks forecasts, then we see that on Wednesday the rain starts, goes for about a week, and then we'll have rain in the end of the next week too. However, seeing usually when you see the rain, then the biggest activity stops. However, I don't think that's going to be the case, because both armies are experiencing some the positive tendencies in their attacks. Ukrainians in Klishchiivka and Bakhmut area, and Russians in Karmazinivka. So I think that the all active attacks will continue throughout the whole week. The big changes in the whole theater of operations, I have divided in four combat zones: Kherson zone, Latvian. Southern zone, central zone, and northern zone. And this was the situation the last week. This is the changes which have happened during the week. We see limited activities in the Kherson zone, more activities from both sides, both Russians and the Ukrainians in southern zone. Especially actives were Ukrainians attacking here in Orekhov area. And in the central zone, we see the Ukrainians attack towards Klishchiivka near the Bakhmut, and now Klishchiivka is not taken yet, but it is at least we can call it in the gray zone. Unfortunately, in the northern part, we see Russians taking over Novoselyivka or Novoyegorivka. Especially dangerous is Novoyegorivka, because here Russians have crossed the river, have the bridgehead, and expanding this bridgehead. So, but let's go step by step, and I explain you what have happened during the weekend. The major attacks, what we've seen, Ukrainians have been focusing on the Crimea. We saw two major ammo depots destroyed in the Crimea, and one oil depot too. The Russian responded with the attack on Zhytomyr, where they attacked the ammo depot, and then they hammered the Odessa and Chernomorsk ports. Also attacked the Reni port, which is it doesn't seem like that, but if you look, here is the Dunay Danube River, and it goes to the Reni. So basically another possibility for the Ukrainians to offload the ships. So basically Russians attacked this one too. And the last one was the Zatoka Bridge, which Russian forces have been attacking since the beginning of that war. The attacks on the ports, the two ports were, just to remind you, the Odessa port is not the one port, it's at three big facilities. One is in Chernomorsk, the other one is Odessa itself, and the third one, it's called Yuzhny. Well, which is interesting, Russians attacking Odessa and Chernomorsk non-stop, but there's no attack on the Yuzhny port. Only one guess I can make on this one: the Russians are keeping its port for themselves, keeping in mind that they won't occupy the whole territory of the Ukraine. Or maybe there's another possibility that the grain deal, which have been stopped by the Russian government right now, may be renewed somewhere in the future, and then, well, they will actually need one operational port from the Ukrainian side too. Zatoka Bridge. Zatoka Bridge, we see this bridge here. This is a vital railway artery, which allows for the cargo to move from the Romania to Ukraine. However, all the reports on the status of the bridge are inconclusive. If you look into the Russian video, we saw this is a bridge. You see the two tall masts here, and what we see here is the explosion somewhere here, which is somewhere here on the picture. However, we do not see any real damages, neither on this video nor on the other videos. Ukrainians actually show us a video showing the whole bridge intact, but we don't know when this video was filmed, so basically it does not provide us a clear understanding of what the status of the bridge right now. So let's keep the question mark here, and I will fix it when the new information will show up. The other situation in the Black Sea region, the Russians used corvette Ternopil. This is a former corvette which was taken by the Russian Navy in 2014. It used to be the Ukrainian ship, and they used the ship as a target for target practice and destroyed and sunk it in the Black Sea. What was the purpose of sinking the ship? I have no idea, to be honest, because I don't think, well, first of all, they are losing one corvette. The other one is, I don't think that's going to be frightening Ukrainians, and that will affect their morale that will not affect their morale in any way. This picture shows that this is the Russian blockade line, which goes over there. And what we see here, we see the large amount of the ships which are on the other side of the blockade line. And what we see is the ships are moving in that direction on the Danube river. And as you understand, well, as you explained, they're going to the Reni port. That is the other port which is Ukrainian are using right now. And that was the reason why the Russian attacked the port and tried to destroy its facilities. Moving further, the Kherson direction. Here we see the Ukrainians attacking with their special forces all the islands on the Dnieper River, and at least one of the islands, Great Potemkin Island, looks like it is under Ukrainian control, and they're trying to gain control over the other islands. We also see the extensive use of the drones by both sides, attacking different targets, and the Russians continue bombardment Ukrainian bridgehead near the Antonivsky's bridge. And if you look into the Antonivsky's bridge and the Antonivsky Island, we see that the Ukrainian platform is right here, and Russians are just attacking with different artillery systems. The Russians themselves are keeping the other part of the road which continues from Antonivsky bridge and goes to the Oleshki. The whole island is actually a gray zone, because I don't think any of the on the sides is actually controlling anything besides the two bridgeheads we have shown on the picture. Moving on, the Energodar direction, which is actually shows the previous situation with the big lake here, and what we see now, it's completely different picture. It's the satellite picture of this area, which is looks more like the desert rather than the water obstacles. What it tells us now about this, what could happen here? Well, obviously, what we could expect here, Ukrainian attack across this area. Why? Because why Ukrainians should do it now? Because the time for the attack is or possibility to attack is very short, because we will have the rain, which will long for a week, maybe even longer, knowing how quickly changes the weather forecast for the Ukraine. So basically, opportunity for attack is right now, and if we would see attack across this area, that will come in the next couple days. Situation on the Zaporozhye front. Here we have the same places where we had the engagements all the time. Kamyansky direction, Rabotine direction, area of Velika Novoselka, and the Vuhledar. Let's view each area one by one. What had happened in Petykhatki after Ukrainians took this territory under their control? They continued their attack towards Kamyansky. And well, obviously Russians did the counterattack, and it's all now in a gray zone. We don't know what the real outcome of this battle. On the direction on the Zherebyanki, we see the Ukrainian attack from the Petykhatki. At least 2 attacks have happened during the weekend. No real results have been achieved. Interestingly, the first time since a very, very long time, we see the Russian activities from Konovalova to Malye Sherbaki. They have the attack in that direction. It's just a probing attack, just to find where the Ukrainian positions here are. But it does not lead to any serious changes in front line or taking any of the territory. But we will see in the next days, will there be continuation of the Russian attacks in that direction, and will we have any activities in that area in the future. The situation on the Orekhov and Orekhov attack from Orekhov towards the Rabotine. What we saw attacks towards the Nesteryanka, in the Verbove direction, but obviously main attacks were happening in the Rabotine area, and it's all started with the Russian counterattack, where they tried to change the situation and take the better positions. But then we saw the 2 directions of attack from the Ukrainians towards the Rabotine and the east of the Rabotine, and attacks went virtually non-stop for all 3 days. And we don't know how far Ukrainians got in the in that area, but probably they moved forward and they did occupy some of the some area here. In the direction of the Rabotine itself, no, there was no any visible move of Ukrainian forces forward. Russians extensively use the K-52 helicopters in that direction, and that is why Ukrainians' attack did not move further. The Velika Novoselka, here it's all started from the Russian activities from the Priyutne and from the Staromayorske, where they tried to clear some gray zone here, and actually they succeeded in taking some areas between Makariivka and Staromayorske. The Ukrainians responded with the attacks towards Urozhaine in 2 days of the weekends, and the same 2 attacks towards the Staromayorske. On Sunday, the Russians attacked from the Levadin and Priyutne, however, did not achieve any success here. Here also the Russians extensively use the K-52 helicopters to stop Ukrainian attacks. And there's one thing which I would like to explain you with the attack on the Staromayorske. Here's the biggest sketch. Staromayorske and Urozhaine are the 2 positions which are taken and controlled by the Russians. And the Ukrainians, well, obviously they cannot attack across the rivers here. The usually attacks came either from that road in the initial phase of the operation, and now we see attacks coming from that direction. And for the 2 attacks in a row, we see the following pictures: the Ukrainians attacking toward the road, easily accessing the this area of Staromayorsky, establishing the positions here, and then get hammered by the Russian artillery and eventually need to withdraw. This pattern already repeated a couple times, and what I think is happening here, the Russians are deliberately letting Ukrainians in, getting them to the positions, and basically what they do, they take the Russian trenches and the buildings where the Russians were located. The coordinates of these trenches and the buildings Russians know very well. They're just letting Ukrainians in, attacking by artillery, and then throw them out with their counterattack. So I think Ukrainians need to adjust their tactics in that area and try something new. Otherwise, if they will continue the same attack, I don't think they will be able to achieve any significant results. And the other thing is here the change in the direction of Priyutne. The Russians took those two hills, here and here, and they are now fully control of those two pieces of terrain. And now, in order to get to the Priyutne, Ukrainians need to first attack and take those two positions, and only then, combining this attack from the west, they actually can take Priyutne. So basically, those two positions need to be taken first. And on the direction of the Vuhledar, here we saw from the area of Zadachi, a very popular name in Ukraine, we saw the Ukrainian attack. However, it does not went any further. The Russians took them with the artillery fire and stopped them in that area. So basically, here attacks have stopped. Situation on the direction of the Avdiivka. Here we see the Russian activities in Kamyanska-Vesele area, and also the continuation of attack south of the Krasnogorivka. In Kamyanka-Vesele on the sketches here, we see that the Russians have took control over those two pieces of terrain and continue their attack towards the north of the Avdiivka. Obviously, Ukrainians are counterattacking here, so basically this territory is in a gray zone, and we don't know how far Russians get, or they were forced to return back to already taking positions. South of the Krasnogorivka, after taking the that industrial positions, Russians tried to expand their success, failed. So basically what they're doing now, they are establishing their more solid positions here in order to be able to hold that positions and do not allow Ukrainians retake this position from them. Now to the Bakhmut area and most important fight over the Klishchiivka. Here we see several successes of the Ukrainian army. We see their success in attack towards the Yehidne. Also the little success here in the south of the Bakhmut, and the main part is the fight near Klishchiivka. Also we saw the attacks towards the Andreevka and fight in the direction of the Kurdyumovka. Also extensive use of the drones by the both sides, and important target destroyed here on Kadema. There's another ammo depot for the Russian army, another success of the Ukrainian long-range artillery. Well, now to the Klishchiivka. What is happening in the Klishchiivka? Finally, there's just to remind you, there's two key positions near Klishchiivka, west of Klishchiivka here, which Ukrainians already took in the previous days. There's the other position north of Klishchiivka, which Ukrainian forces are finally controlling. Russians made several counterattacks trying to retake position, but unsuccessfully. Now Ukrainians controlling that position, and they are also controlling the forest west of Klishchiivka. Also, they have a successful attacks towards the Andreevka and try to expand their control over that territory. Obviously, the Russians did their counterattacks, but so far it seemed they are unsuccessful. Now, what is happening? Ukrainians are trying to reinforce their positions, making sure that the Russians, with their counterattacks, will not retake that position. And what we will most likely will see in the following 48 hours, we will see the attack towards Klishchiivka, and if the situation would not change and Russians will not retake this position, I think within next 48 hours. Ukrainians will retake Klishchiivka. If that will happen, Russians will be forced to withdraw, and the next defense line for the Russian forces will be along the railway line, which is going right here. In the direction of Seversk and the Solidar, we see the Russians are active in Bilogorivka and area, and in the area of Berestove. Well, actually, Ukrainians are attacking them all the way from Zalesnyansk, Dubovo-Vasilievka and Yahidne, and also continue their successful attacks in the direction of Razdolivka. There's two interesting videos I saw in that area, one on the Ukrainian drone attack and another one of the Russian tank attack, and just explain you how it looked like. The first one is the attack on the Bilogorivka. Here we see the Ukrainian drone throwing the grenade within the Russian BMP infantry vehicle, and then the whole vehicle is destroyed. The other video is a video of the Russian tank, which is attacking Ukrainian positions. We cannot geolocate the tank positions, but we can geolocate the impact areas. And if you look into the, well, it's an easier geolocation. We have a forest here, we have the road, and we have another forest here. And if you look here, it's one forest, it's a road, and it's another forest here. So basically, yes, it is that area. But there's one small problem. The closest Russian positions of the tank, where it could be located, is around here. And this is about 5 kilometers away from the impact area. So that's, yes, well, the Russian tank can shoot the high explosive rounds for about that distance. But then, well, it's a very damn lucky tank. Well, theoretically, it could see the position, because we see it's on the high ground, then it's go lower and then go up again. So basically, theoretically, he can see the target. But I think the explanation is rather more simple. The front line, which we draw right now here, is actually somewhere else, and the tank is located much closer to Razdolivka than we think. So, well, I will certainly check this situation and adjust front line when the new information will come. On the direction of Torsky and Zarechne, or overall the direction of Zariampol, we see the Russian attacks on Serebryanka forest, and there's a small Russian advances in that area. In the center direction of the Torsky and Zarechne, the Russians are reinforcing their position. So basically making sure that Ukrainians cannot retake it from them, and does not conduct any attacks in that area. Well, obviously the Ukrainians tried to retake that position and conducted counterattack from different directions. However, Russians stood their ground and still control that area. And now to the last place where the most significant battles are happening. It's the Kupiansk area. Here we can see the battles between Liman and Sinkivka. We see fights in Novoselivke, we see fights in Nadia Serhievka, and also the Russian attack on the Karmazinivka. Let's, before we move forward, there's two adjustments. There were reported two Russians bridgeheads here. However, it's been a very long time since we haven't heard any news from those two bridgeheads. So I assume they do not exist anymore. There is a Russian withdrawal from the positions, or Ukrainians retake those two positions. So now let's see again one by one what have happened in each direction. So in the Sinkivka, the Russians have been attacking Sinkivka from three directions: from the north, from the northwest and the west. However, Ukrainians did their counterattack, and as a result of that counterattack, they moved in the forest and now control that area. So basically Russian attack in that direction turned to be a failure, and Ukrainians actually improved their position in that direction. In position in the area of the Novoselivsk, we after the heavy fights in Novoselivsk, Russian took the major heights in that area, and after the heights were taken, then Ukrainians actually withdrew, and now Novoselivsk is in full control of the Russian forces. Well, the worst situation, unfortunately, is in the Karmazinivka direction, and this was the positions I showed for the July 19. Unfortunately, now situation developed in negative way, and now situation look like that. So after the 19th, the Russians were pumping forces across the river line and tried to put more forces on the bridgehead. And on the 22nd, they have two attacks from two directions here, and took that territory under their control. And the next day, following day, they expanded it, moving in the different directions. And now they are controlling Novoegorivka, that forest, and that forest. And unfortunately, now we have an information that the Russians continued their attack even further. Tomorrow we will tell how the situation have changed here. The Ukrainians obviously tried to conduct counterattack from the different directions, but all of them were unfortunately unsuccessful. So situation here is serious, not yet critical. So Ukrainians, if the Ukrainians will push additional units, additional reserves in that area, they actually might contain the Russian forces within that bridgehead. But so far it's actually looks very negative, and it looks like Russians will be able to continue the attacks further. If you look into the situation, what Russians could do in that direction, and just to orient you here, it's here we have the Oskol river, one of the key obstacle here. The other one is the Zherebets river, which is going right here. And what we have here, we have the Russian bridgehead here, and possible Russian bridgehead here near Nadia and Sinkivka. What could be the Russian plan in that direction? Obviously, Oskol river, and when you see the when you have the river, you go for the bridges. Bridge in Kupiansk, bridge in Sinkivka, bridge in Borovo, and bridge on Oskil. And most likely Russian course of action would be expanding the bridgehead of Karmazinivka, move that direction towards the Borovo, and do the same from the other bridgehead. So basically Borovo and the bridge of the Borovo is their primary objectives right now. After that, the Russian forces will expand it both north and south. And if they attack south towards Sinkivka, again Novoselivsk is taken, Russians can move both from the east and from the south. That would be the secondary attack. I believe their major attack will go south. They will attack and expand their bridgehead towards Makiivka, Nevsky, and Terny further on. But their main attack will be in that direction, and the objective of that attack will be town of Liman. Town of Liman. So consequently, if they will succeed with that, they will obviously attack Kupiansk too, with a simultaneous attack from the north, from the south, and most likely crossing the river somewhere on the north, also from that direction. What should Ukrainians should do in the situation? Ukrainians should immediately do everything possible to close that the bridgehead and destroy Russian forces near Karmazinivka. Otherwise, we should remember there are two significant Russian units that are located, that not involved in the battle yet, but could be used if the bridgehead will expand. It's the 4th Tanks Army and 19th Tanks Army, and that's a very significant post which will do a lot of damage to Ukrainian forces. So basically, again, returning back, they should do everything possible to destroy current Russian bridgehead near Karmazinivka. Situation on the Kharkiv front, there was nothing happening for very long time. Now we see the Russians attacking different positions of Ukrainian forces and the ammo depots in that area. I do not think that we will see the significant Russian activity in that area, and I don't think that they will attack, but they will harass Ukrainian forces here, and will by attacking their forces will not allow to relocate the forces from the Kharkiv direction somewhere else. And last, the situation in Belarus, we see that the Wagner forces have moved to the Brest area, where they train together with 38 air assault brigade of the Belarusian forces, and they are establishing the powerful unit, try to establish a powerful unit here on the southern corner of the Belarus. But all discussions, I hear a lot of discussions that the Wagner could threaten the Poland, could threaten the Suwalki Gap, and all the other things. It's more on the current status of the Wagner forces and the Belarusian forces. I need to say that is more science fiction rather than reality. So there's need to be a lot of time, a lot of resources put in, and a lot of training put in before those forces will become the credible force that will be able to do some damage. But for the now, it's still the problem for Ukrainian forces, because they will not be able to relocate any of their forces from the Ukrainian northern border. The one news from the Belarus, sorry, it's the news in my native language, but what it's saying that the Belarusian parliament is now making changes in the Belarusian legislation, similarly that the Russian did in 2022, and those changes allow for the use of the for the Belarusian forces outside territory of the Republic of Belarus. So unfortunately, this is a step towards more possible Belarusian involvement into that conflict, which is a negative tendency, but we see how far the Belarusians will go with that involvement in the war against Ukraine, because it's been a long time. Russians were pressuring Belarusians to be involved in a conflict. So far we see their obvious support for Russia, but we do not see direct involvement in the conflict against Ukraine. I hope that will remain the same. So that's conclude my report today. I hope you liked it. Show me your likes with the your reactions, and if we see enough reactions from you, then I will continue reporting on war in Ukraine, and I will do it the reports in English for the whole this week. If there will be sufficient interest, I will continue to do the same all the other weeks after the next, the same way I'm doing the reporting in Latvians. But that concludes my report for today. Thank you for your attention, and see you tomorrow.